Hey guys, welcome back. Today it's time to put on our hopium masks and talk about our hopes for Halo Infinite's story. Now, I did not expect to be making this video this early, but seeing as 343 surprised us with a bit of campaign stuff at the E3 reveal, I figured now was the perfect time. One note though for this video, if my voice sounds a bit weird or my nose looks a bit red, well there's a reason for that. My sinuses are currently under massive attack from pollen and my immune system is all like...
Well, that's it then. Bring the ship back up to Combat Alert Alpha. I want everyone at their stations.
Everyone, sir?
So yeah, if it sounds like I've been inhaling methane before recording this video, that's absolutely not the case. I can promise you, you know the reason why. So, without any further ado, let's talk about my hopes for Halo Infinite's story, because I have quite a few, as I'm sure you can imagine. So, let's just get the first 1/2 obvious ones out of the way first. I really hope that Mendicant Bias and the Primordial are present in the game's story in some capacity. Now, obviously they can't be there literally, considering the Primordial was killed like 99,000 years before Infinite takes place, and Mendicant Bias is on the Ark, supposedly, so obviously they can't be there as main characters, and honestly, I don't think they really work as main antagonists or protagonists. I think the best way for Infinite to do them, that would fit really well with their current state in the universe, is the way that Halo 3 did Mendicant Bias. Do that for him, and also the Primordial. I've said it before, and I will continue to say it, right? Halo 3 absolutely did Mendicant Bias the best. His treatment in that game, the way that they had him there, present throughout most of the game in the background, like very secretly aiding Chief, was absolutely genius. I absolutely adore Halo 3's terminals for that reason, more so than any other, and I really think that would be the best way to include both the Primordial and also Mendicant in Infinite's story. I think given both of these characters' histories with Zeta Halo and, you know, what went down between the two of them on Zeta Halo, considering that is literally the location where the Primordial gave Mendicant Bias the Logic Plague, I think it would just be such a missed opportunity to not give them both some presence to some degree in the game. They're both absolutely superb characters, and I feel like it'd be so good to still be able to feel the ripples of their actions in their kind of era of the Halo universe, in the modern era of the Halo universe. And I mean, what better location is there than Zeta Halo to feel those ripples? I mean, come on. Obviously, you guys know that I can't talk about Infinite's story without at least mentioning Mendicant and the Primordial, so I figured I'd get that out of the way first. And my second point kind of connects to this as well, and it's something that could spring from both of those characters and also from Zeta Halo's presence in their era of the galaxy, and that is the really dark and, to be quite honest, horrific history of Zeta Halo. I really want that horrific history to be emphasized and touched on in the main story. And there are so many ways to do this without forcing, like, that era of the galaxy into the main story, if you get me. I mean, just implicit things, for example, like taking us to the Palace of Pain or having us go to run-down flood containment facilities and areas like that. I mean, Point of Light, for example, that book painted this incredible picture of the underbelly of Zeta Halo, this, I say incredible, in fact rather terrifying picture of the underbelly of Zeta Halo where all of the flood containment facilities are located, being damaged and fallen into disrepair and out of power. I mean, that is the perfect setting to really bring forward the Ring's horrific history, and I think it would be almost a shame if those elements of the book weren't brought into the game in some capacity. And kind of springing off of that point, something I really want Infinite's story to do is to bring back that feeling of horror that Halo once had. Now, if you ask me, in Combat Evolved, Bungie set out 3 very clear kind of elements of a Halo story: heroism, mystery, and horror. And during Combat Evolved, and most of the trilogy, and also Reach in a way, these 3 elements, heroism, mystery, and horror, really played off of each other really well and almost formed an atmosphere triangle, if you will. But I feel like since Bungie's era of the games, the horror element in particular has been sorely missing. And well, if you ask me, Zeta Halo is the perfect location for that horror atmosphere to make a return. And obviously you've got the links to the Flood and to Mendicant Bias and all that, but the horror doesn't even have to come from like the Flood and all that kind of area of the lore. I mean, Reach did a great job at giving the Covenant a horror vibe. Could definitely do that with the Banished. I mean, if there's any Covenant-esque faction out there that could have a horror element to them, then I think the Banished fall in line with that really well. I mean, we've seen in the Expanded Universe before how violent and just horrific the brutes are. Why not bring that into the game and use it as a conduit to bring that horror element back and reform the kind of atmosphere triangle, if you will? That said, the horror doesn't even have to be attached to any specific faction or character or species. You could just have it attached to the ring. I mean, one of the greatest forms of horror in any kind of media, if you ask me, is the fear of the unknown, and I think a Halo ring with one with a history as storied as Zeta Halo is the perfect location to really build up an atmosphere of fear of the unknown. I think it would work so well. Now, not only would it work so well with Zeta Halo, but it would also work really well with the kind of feeling of mystery that 343 keep emphasizing with Infinite that they're really trying to build up with this game's story and campaign. Mystery is really at the heart of the fear of the unknown. It's the idea that you don't know what's around the corner, or you don't know why this thing is here, or you don't know what happened before you were at this location, and I really think that there are so many cool ways for them to kind of bring this forward on Zeta Halo. Now, I think one of the cool ways they could do fear of the unknown and kind of have it blend with that feeling of exploration that 343 keep emphasizing for Infinite's campaign would be to have random unmarked facilities and installations hidden throughout the map that aren't actually present on your map, but you just stumble upon them and you don't know their purpose, you don't know why they were built, you don't know what's inside, but you want to go in. I actually got this idea, funnily enough, from Lost. Now, I used to be a massive fan of Lost when it was on TV, and recently I've been rewatching it for the first time since it finished, and it really brought that fear of the unknown forward and made me think about how it could work in Halo, and I think Lost really puts it forward in a perfect way. I mean, the show builds up so many questions and so many mysteries, like, why is there a hatch on this desolate island? Why is there some Scottish dude in this hatch putting these numbers into a console and saying that if he doesn't do it every 108 minutes, the whole thing will explode? Who are the others? What are the Dharma Initiative, and what happened on this island before Oceanic 815 crashed on it? Like, it built up these mysteries in such a natural way. Like, the characters weren't just exposited them by another character. They naturally stumbled upon them in the jungle or anywhere on the island. It was a very natural form of stumbling upon these mysteries, and I really hope that's something that Infinite does to kind of build up the fear of the unknown. Having you just exploring a forest or something and randomly stumbling upon some foreigner installation that you don't see on your map would be so creepy if you ask me, especially if that facility played into the history of the ring. And on the topic of exploration, that's another one of my hopes for this game's story. I really want the exploration to dig into Zeta Halo's history. There's so much there that it would be almost criminal if they didn't. There are so many potential locations, facilities, and installations on Zeta Halo that would be prime for exploration. I'm really hoping that Zeta Halo is just doused in like old installations and the ruins of installations that are just layered with environmental storytelling that really tap into the history of the ring, because there's so much history and lore and story there that, like I said, it would be almost criminal if the game didn't dive into that in some capacity. Okay, something that I'm hoping for in this game's story that isn't to do with Zeta Halo or the Flood or Mendicant Bias or the Primordial is that sense of humanity truly being on the back foot again. We did see that at the very end of Halo 5, but for most of the Reclaimer era, we've never really felt that. I mean, the very intro of Halo 4, at least when you meet humanity, is like, look how powerful humanity are now. Look how much stronger they are than almost everything else in the galaxy, and I didn't really like that. I always liked that feeling of desperation in Halo. Like, you always felt like humanity and the allies were with their backs against the wall, fighting like for every last breath. It was a great feeling that played into the heroism, and I really want to see Infinite bring that back to the forefront. Something I was really happy to see in that campaign footage was the blend of both classic kind of Bungie era storytelling and also Halo 4 storytelling. Now, that is something that I really want this game to emphasize and to not lose sight of. I really like the blend of both the kind of badass one-liners and epic moments of the classic storytelling of the Bungie era with the more emotional tones of Halo 4 that really allow you to create an attachment with the actual personality of a character character, not just the husk of that character. Funnily enough, Chris Reagan actually mentioned this in his Halo Infinite video, but one of my favourite images of all time for Halo that, for me, really encapsulates the character, or kind of lack thereof, at least in the games, of the Master Chief, is this that was used in Halo 3 marketing. A hero need not speak. When he is gone, the world will speak for him. That phrase really just summarises Chief as a character to me, and it really seems like Infinite is taking us back to that style of Chief, but without completely dropping a lot of the progression his character went under in Halo 4's story that made him more human and not more emotional, because I think emotional is the wrong term, but just more of an actual human as opposed to just a robot. These two styles of storytelling excel in radically different areas, and although it might seem like, at face value at least, the two are diametrically opposed, this trailer to me showed that they aren't, and that they can in fact be blended really well, and I really do hope 343 can continue this blend up throughout the entire campaign. I also think that this blend of storytelling would be almost synonymous with that backs up against the wall theming as well. I mean, if the entire campaign is essentially about humanity having their backs pushed against the wall by the Banished and fighting desperately for each breath, then there are going to be moments for each kind of storytelling to really shine and have their own unique moments, if you get me. Like, there'll be so much room for badass one-liners and epic moments to come from Chief and the allies, while at the same time there's also going to be plenty of room for more emotional story beats as well that come out of that desperation. So I really hope that blend of storytelling styles is something that continues throughout the entire game. Now, one of the things that I'm looking forward to most in Infinite is facing off against the Banished in a first-person shooter. However, I do have one outlying kind of hope, also kind of a concern about the Banished, and it's specifically about some members of the Banished, the Hand of Atriox. Now, I have spoken about this in quite a few videos before, but with the way they're kind of talking about the Hand of Atriox and its members, they're sounding like bosses. I mean, we already kind of know there's going to be boss battles in Infinite based on this icon on the map that you can see. We've looked at this a billion times before. And my hope / concern is that the members of the Hand of Atriox, if they do turn out to be bosses, are more than just stronger brutes or stronger elites. I want them to be not only unique to fight, but also really unique characters as well. And I think the best place to look for inspiration for that is, I've said it 1,000 times before, but Metal Gear Solid, in particular Dead Cell from MGS2. MGS does a fantastic job at making bosses more than just simple gameplay hurdles. They're actual characters that, when you strip away their crazy exteriors, like the fact that one's a vampire and one literally can't die and one is like Arnold Schwarzenegger crossed over with Dr. Octopus, they become rather believable characters, human almost. For example, Arnold Schwarzenegger crossed over with Dr. Octopus, Solidus, wanted to destroy the Patriots as revenge for them artificially creating him as a part of Les Enfants Terribles, which was this horrific cloning procedure in the 70s that gave him an accelerated lifespan. And then you've got Fortune, called Lady Luck because bullets just bounce off her and grenades don't work against her, who, it turns out, is actually a really sad character who actually wants to die. Her husband was incorrectly convicted of corruption. Her mother committed suicide. Her father, she believed, was killed by Solid Snake, and as a consequence of that, she ended up miscarrying her unborn child, and so she joined the military, and ultimately Dead Cell, to try and get revenge on Solid Snake for causing all of this grief. But then it turns out that Snake wasn't responsible. It was in fact Ocelot who she was working with the entire time. I really like how these bosses were as fleshed out characters as the main protagonists and antagonists of the game itself. And I mean, to be fair, if you want to look closer to home with Halo, I think Tartarus was a great example of that. He was not only a unique enemy to fight, but also a super unique character with unique motivations, a unique personality, and just an overall cool character design. After seeing how the bosses were designed in Halo 5 Warzone, in that they were just like Promethean Knights with more health, or Warden Eternal that does more damage, I do worry that these really cool looking members of the Hand of Atriox, if they are bosses, will end up being like a tougher brute or an elite that does more damage or something, and I really want them to be more than that. I want these seemingly important characters to actually mean something. I want defeating them to
make me feel it. Make me feel alive again.
At the end of the day, I just hope they're all uniquely designed antagonists whose character and motivations give you reason beyond just wanting to progress through the story for wanting to defeat them. Okay, so the next thing is something that I've been hoping for, well, since 2015, since Halo 5 came out, and also since 2017, since Halo Wars 2 came out. And that is for the game to have an actual resolute ending, right? We've not had a Halo campaign actually have a resolute ending that ties up most of the plot threads that were created in its story since Halo 4, right? Halo 4, 9 years ago. We've not had it since then, and I'm kind of getting sick of cliffhangers. Don't get me wrong, I'm all on board for games kind of setting up the next part of the story, setting up a sequel. In fact, I love when games do that because it gives us something to speculate about, it gives us something to theorize about. But for the love of God, please tie up your plot threads. Please. Halo 5 and Halo Wars 2 just didn't do that. It's been 9 years since a Halo campaign did that, so please, I'm begging you, Halo Infinite, please give us just somewhat of a resolute ending. I am begging you. Now, my final hope is something that I think we're all gonna have to take a real deep breath of hopium for, right? And that is for the Harbinger to end up being the Didact. Now, it sounds kind of crazy, right? And I promise you, this is not just me being a Didact fanboy and really wanting the guy to come back at some point. There is actually kind of a bit of evidence for this, right? So just hear me out. Escharum said that the Harbinger and the Banished share the same goal. Maybe the Didact wants to reclaim the Halos in the wake of the Forerunners' return to the galaxy, like he talks about at the end of Halo 4, even though that quote technically isn't from Halo 4's era, it's from the Forerunner Flood War, but still it applies to his motives in Halo 4. He wants to reclaim the galaxy for the Forerunners from humanity. He also wants to destroy humanity, and given that the Banished just absolutely annihilated humanity in a war on Zeta Halo, again, you know, it kinda lines up. And furthermore, there were even some early concepts for Atriox that had him named the Didact Hunter, right? The Didact Hunter. Come on. You can't tell me the links between the Banished and the Didact aren't there. They've been there for a while. They've never been particularly strong, but they have been there. My fingers are just crossed so hard they're basically snapping. I am begging for the Harbinger to end up being the Didact. I want the Didact to come back so bad. He was treated horrendously after Halo 4, and even Halo 4 didn't even do him as well as I would have liked either, to be honest with you. I think he deserved more screen time and more presence in Halo 4, but what came after Halo 4 with the next 72 hours and what happened to the Didact in that story arc, it was awful. The Didact did not deserve that, so please, 343, bring the Didact back, bring him back to the forefront of the Halo universe, and to be honest, Zeta Halo is like the perfect location to do that. So, I mean, hopium. And so, with that said, those are my absolute top tier hopes for Halo Infinite's story. Let me know what you guys want down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of my hopes, and if there are any things that you're hoping for in the story, in the campaign that I didn't mention in this video. I'd love to hear them. And so, with that said, I'm gonna take the hopium breather off and round this video out here. I want to give a massive thank you to Tuski for becoming a new primordial over on Patreon. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else who continues to support me over there. And also to everybody for watching the video. Thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you all in the next one.